So now we talked about red blood cell and hemoglobin were low. We looked at the hormone levels. So let's say the testosterone is low, because we went to the bone marrow and we said, okay, the bone marrow is not making enough red blood cells and making enough hemoglobin. Why not? Well, now we look at the hormone testosterone. Testosterone is low. It's one of its primary roles is erythropoiesis, putting pressure on the bone marrow. So now the question is, don't just replace the hormone. Why is testosterone low? Well, the next thing I would look at would be three factors. I would look at your DHEA level, your vitamin
Cruciferous vegetables or grass-fed beef.
Grass-fed beef. My preference would be grass-fed beef and grass-fed beef, chicken, eggs, raw dairy, but non-pasteurized, non-homogenized, raw A2 dairy. And then you take it a step lower. There's a protein in the blood called SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. And this protein, when it rises, it actually does exactly what its name sounds like, and it binds to sex hormones, primarily testosterone, and it will lower the level of free testosterone in your blood. So again, very often what happens is nutrient deficiencies drive deficiencies in things like hormones. Deficiencies in hormone drive deficiencies in bone marrow production of red blood cell and hemoglobin, which drive deficiencies in oxygen, which essentially lead to the deficiency in energy, which is exactly why you see these kinds of comments in the Journal of American Urology, which again I would consider one of the Bibles for male endocrine therapy, that things like fatigue, the risk factor for cardiovascular disease, even the implication that hormone therapy could increase the incidence of thrombolytic events, strokes, heart attacks, cardiovascular risk. That's all been debunked here. And they actually cite the evidence for that. And I don't think that there's a practicing physician today that wouldn't say that the Journal of American Urology is one of the Bibles for male endocrine therapy. So just back to this data for a moment. So now people that are deficient in vitamin D3, deficient in DHEA, and have this excess protein called SHBG, these are not massive, these are not diseases, these are not pathologies, these are nutrients in the human body, very simple to fix. What is the consequence? The consequence is low hormones, low red blood cell count, low hemoglobin. What's the consequence of that? Very poor sleep, very poor energy, poor focus and concentration, poor short-term recall, weight gain, water retention, a very poor response to exercise, slow recovery. So you have all this myriad of things that are coming from pretty simple nutrient deficiencies. And again, we would see this in the medical record. I'm like, well, this person doesn't really need hormone therapy. They just need DHEA and vitamin D3. This person doesn't need to be given injections of testosterone. They need to get this protein lowered. So we don't study human beings the same way that we study plants. We don't say, well, let's add nitrogen to the soil and let the tree rebound. We just say, well, the disease is in the leaf, so let's replace the leaf or cut it off. And the same thing happens take vitamin D3 deficiency. It compromises the immune system. You get repeated viral infections. You get repeated bacterial infections, which further compromise the immune system, because a lot of viral pathogens in the human body are opportunistic, right? Like Epstein-Barr virus. You don't catch Epstein-Barr virus. You always had it. It was mono that you had as a child that came back in your 40s as Epstein-Barr because you ran the immune system down. Chicken pox that you had as a child comes back as shingles. You didn't actually catch shingles. You've always had it. So now all of a sudden you're starting to have a compromised immune system because of a compromised nutrient deficiency. And because of this compromised immune system, you're getting repeated viral infections. And now you're taking either repeated antivirals or repeated antibiotics, which is now destroying the gut. So again, my whole point is that we should come full circle back to the human body and say, first, what nutrient deficiency could be causing this consequence, right? Because if you take the majority of people with low testosterone that are also clinically deficient in DHEA and vitamin D3, and I have thousands of patient records to prove this. I'm more than 20. How many clinicians do we have working for us now? 22. We have 22 full-time licensed clinicians that work for me full-time. And you go back into their record and you look at what happens when we just put D3 and DHEA into their bodies. That's it. Just gave them vitamin D3 back into the optimal range, gave them DHEA back into the optimal range. Their hormone levels returned to normal. Their red blood cell count and hemoglobin rose into the optimal range. And the consequence for them was better focus, better concentration, improved sleep, and improved waking energy. Not hormone therapy, not fancy sleeping pills, no chemicals, no synthetics, no pharmaceuticals, just the deficiency that was missing from the body that was causing it to not behave optimally.